A very warm welcome to IDFC First Bank Presents Leaders of Tomorrow Season 11. I'm Ritwika Gupta, and you're watching our very special Eye on Dubai series, a week-long showcase where we are taking you across various sectors in Dubai, covering the growth opportunities and the emerging trends. Today, we'll be focusing on the startup ecosystem in Dubai, the role of incubators and accelerators, and how the landscape has evolved for women entrepreneurs. On the show today, I'll be in conversation with Sudhir Syal, founder and CEO Startify, and in the second segment, a conversation lined up with Angana Maheshwari, founder Veganology.
In the heart of the startup world, there's a new player on the block with a bold mission. Startify, a fresh face in the startup scene, barely 7 months old and already making waves in the Middle East. Why the Middle East, you ask? Well, it's becoming a hotspot for D2C startups who have nailed their product market fit. But what sets Startify apart from the rest? It's their all-in-one approach as a go-to-market accelerator, offering a suite of services that takes a brand from zero to hero in a new market. Joining us today is Startify's founder and CEO Sudhir Syal to elucidate on UAE's pro-business ecosystem.
Thank you, Sudhir, for joining us today on Leaders of Tomorrow.
Thanks for having me.
So, Sudhir, I want to begin this interview by talking about you. You've done many hats. You have promoted a Westlife's concert here in Dubai. You have sold premium eyewear through Lenskart, scaled Book My Show Indonesia. Tell me, you also had your own TV show as well. So how do you connect so many dots, and what's the next big thing that you're working on?
No, great question. I think, connecting dots comes from firstly, working with great people, right? And I've had the privilege of working with two very globally minded companies in Book My Show and Lenskart and growing them in the region, in Southeast Asia and the Middle East. But also thinking from consumer first and thinking what the market needs.
Yeah.
Right? And I think in Southeast Asia, it was the cinema event opportunity because we saw that there is a gap there in terms of underinvestment in entertainment. But here in the Middle East, obviously Book My Show scaled significantly, but the eyewear journey was really the fact that this region we found is underbranded when it comes to masstige brands, right? So which is catering to the upper middle class, right?
Sure.
And also, while most startup ecosystems go through journeys, which is you start with C2C classifieds, B2C, e-commerce, vertical e-commerce, you move to fintech, clean tech, fintech, and sort of building brands comes in the end, which is why India is seeing this D2C wave, right? And Middle East is now primed for a D2C wave, and there are many reasons for this, right? I think fundamentally, number one is the higher spending power in this region, which means that brands can turn profitable here quite quickly. Yeah. Number two is this retail and online infrastructure that is now very robust, which means you can get to 1,000 stores within a year. Your payment gateway conversion rates are high. You can move to Saudi in a short period of time. You can do B2B in Africa sitting over here. So Dubai's positioning as a global hub makes it very easy for brands to scale here very quickly. And the fact that entrepreneurship here itself is quite new. Right. If you look at really the first wave of entrepreneurship here was really with landmark group, apparel groups, Lulu, Choitram scaling here. The second wave would be perhaps Zomato, ClearTrip, and so on coming here. The third wave is perhaps now more recently companies like Book My Show, Lenskart, or Talabat and Kareem really doing very well. Kareem has really become an icon in the startup world here, right? Being the first unicorn. And I think what this is ushering in now is this new wave of startups that are being built in the Middle East, that are thinking globally minded and are really benefiting from this resurgence of the UAE, right? As a technology innovation capital as opposed to being this economic hub for a long period of time, right? And I guess connecting the dots have been, I've been fortunate. It's been part serendipitous and part opportunistic and part working with good people.
Well, absolutely. And just picking up from what you said, you have worked across many markets, like you mentioned, India, there's Indonesia, Singapore, Philippines. So, how has the transition been in Dubai? If you can talk to us about the startup ecosystem in Dubai, the venture funding scene here, and what sets it apart from the rest of the world.
I think there's some fundamental changes and some differences between this region and Southeast Asia. Some good, some in which UAE is making tremendous progress, right? The biggest differentiator is spending power, right? If you look at Southeast Asia and India, the spending power, Southeast Asia spending power on a per capita basis is probably 1.5 times India, right? But this region is 3x, 4x India, right? So when you look at consumer goods, you look at fashion, you look at luxury, consumers are willing to spend big chunks of money, and the disposable income is really high, right? Which means you can price a product which you're pricing in India at X, you can price it here at 3x, 4x, right? And the second part is that because there are so many tourists coming to Dubai, and the government has done such a fabulous job in making Dubai the #1 tourist destination in the world today, while there is Dubai's population is only 3 million, there's this continuous stream of tourists coming in with high spending power, not only from Europe and from India, but also from the GCC region, right? So, and when you provide them an experience where they are compelled to buy, they don't buy 3 or 4, they make big purchases, right? That is a big benefit for brands coming in here or for companies coming in here. The second part is that in terms of the ecosystem, the startup ecosystem really has started growing really here in the last decade. There are some, Thai has been doing a good job here. There are incubators like In5, there's Hub 71, right? There is Area 2071, where we work out sometimes as well. And all of these initiatives have started off around the last 3-4 years, right? And with any ecosystem needs a few things for it to scale. It needs firstly success stories, right? Because unless ecosystem have success stories, why are people doing this, right? And India had its first few success stories really in 2015-16, right? Which is the first time Flipkart attained a valuation of over $1 billion. It was the first time there were some folks who worked in the team who made an exit out of the ESOPs, or the first time companies like Naukri, Make My Trip started scaling, right? So 2015-16 is when the ecosystem really started growing in India, because people said, hey, this startup thing is not all humdrum. It's actually real. There's actually money, right? And that has probably just started happening here. So the region is, say, 7-8 years behind India from that perspective.
Tell me, what kind of support have you seen from the government here and policymakers, to really help startups here, boost their business in terms of ease of doing business, perhaps? What can you tell us?
Today with Startify, when we work with companies, we work with the government, we work with Area 2071, and this help and support extends not only from setup incorporation, not only in terms of helping you get access in terms of commerce, you want to meet distributors, you want to meet retailers, but also in terms of introducing you to investors, right? I think since this ecosystem is young, what is required is a overarching layer of mentorship, right? And that one part is what Startify is also on a journey to help solve. And that mentorship layer is a big part of it, which India really benefited from, which this region will soon imbibe as well.
Right, and just again, picking up from what you mentioned, beyond the financial assistance, if you can just elaborate on the mentorship bit, that Startify is involved in, to really mentor the startups, the kind of support that they need beyond the financial means.
So Startify is a cross-border go-to-market enabler for consumer and soon getting to technology as well, business to expand in the region, right? So what does that mean? First things first, when companies meet us, we enter a discovery phase and say, hey, this is what you're doing in India, or this is what you're doing in the other part of the world. Does this market really exist for you? If it exists, great, let's go further. If it doesn't, it's fine, right? Okay. And how do we know whether this market exists? By looking at what the competition is in this market, looking at case studies in this market, speaking to online platforms like your Noons, Amazons of the world, speaking to offline distributors, and speaking to flavors and fragrances companies, right? And then making a comparative matrix to say, hey, okay, where does this brand stand and why? And what is required in terms of localization for it to work, right? And you enter the second phase, which is the engagement phase, where we set up, you make a business plan for the company over the next 2 years. Say, hey, you need to invest this much, else nothing is going to happen. And this is when your business here will potentially break even. And then you enter this 6-month execution phase, which is everything from setup, incorporation, product certifications, setting up online, which is then taking them to online marketplaces, taking them to Amazon, Noon, Microsoft, going deep in terms of the brand positioning, because this market, while the market is 40% South Asian, the 25%, which is 25-30%, which is Arab and Western, constitutes 60 to 70% of the spends, right? So you need to tailor make your brands for this audience. And how do you do that, right? And that's where our brand positioning team helps enable that and helps in repositioning the brand, be it in terms of the brand narrative, the storytelling, the uplifting the brand for it to reach out and to cater to the local audience. But once we've done that, then there's this whole PR piece in terms of taking to the media, but also the online piece and then the offline piece. And that's a big chunk of what we do, which is we've partnered with a series of distributors, right? And these are distributors across food, across beauty, and then we take the brand there, right? And then finally setting up the supply chain.
So finally, as we wrap up this interview, tell me, when we talk about entrepreneurship, there's a certain romance and glamour associated with it. What would your advice be for all the entrepreneurs out there who want to set up their businesses in Dubai?
Number one rule for entrepreneurs, and someone smartly said it's keep going, right? I think that's simplifying it a bit, right? But I think it's a big part of what one should do. I think the third part is that, hey, while you are dealing with challenges in your current market, right? Don't ignore opportunities that are available in markets where you have a right to win, right? And Dubai is definitely a market where you have a right to win. And the reason why you have a right to win is because the existing trade links that exist for maybe over 100 years between the two countries. Dubai is really, people say it's a part of India, and I'm sure when you go out, you'll feel that way, right? If somebody cracked a joke, it's the cleanest country in India. But the right to win is really high here, and the right to win is high here because of the value for your time, the value of goods, how it's one of the safest and perhaps one of the easiest countries to do business. And for an entrepreneur, if you're building your valuation story in India, build your profit-making story in the UAE and in this region. And Saudi is an amazing opportunity which is also taking shape, right? And hopefully Startify can be that enabler in that positive growth story for you.
Well, all the very best. It was lovely chatting with you. Thank you so much, Sudhir.
Thanks so much for your time.
Thank you. It's time for a quick break here. When we return, we are chatting with Angana Maheshwari. Stay tuned.